So you want to take over for Letterman. You want to host Late Show on CBS.
Yeah, that's...
Well, here's the thing with that, champ. That's short for champion. If you want to be a talk show host, it's better if you're funny. Now, there have been some guys who are not funny. Tom Snyder, David Susskind, Ted Koppel. But funny's better. Now, have you ever had any experience with being funny?
Yeah, I'm a comedian.
You're a comedian. Well, I've known you for a week and you haven't made me laugh once. I had no idea you were a comedian. I thought you were a newsman.
Oh, I'm not a newsman. I'm a comedian. Jesus.
Well, all right, let's see it.
See what?
See the funny. Make me laugh. Go.
Go?
Go. Funny. 3, 2, 1. Go.
I'm not that kind of funny.
What kind of funny?
The kind where you just say go and I'm funny.
All right, I think you better leave my office.
Jack.
Good morning. It's time for a field report, and to make that possible, along with all things possible, is one of our favorite directors, Marvel Television A, Steve Surjik. Good morning. How are you, buddy?
God bless you. I'm doing great. Thank you for having me once again.
Always.
I'm always excited to be here, and especially on this auspicious occasion where we're talking about discussing the passing of the great David Lynch, as well as aspects of John Carpenter's great work.
Right.
And the two actually do connect because Carpenter was a friend of David Lynch, believe it or not, and and they knew each other, and they both enjoyed Bob's Big Boy, in Burbank.
Well, David Lynch was the de facto mayor of Bob's Big Boy, as we all know. John Carpenter is the de facto mayor of IHOP, or was. I don't know if he still is. He was an IHOP guy. Yeah, but can you imagine walking into Bob's Big Boy and seeing them both in a booth together? Talk about mind-numbing experiences. I think I told you before, my daughter said the ultimate conversational dream setup is you walk into Bob's Big Boy, you sit in a booth, you have David Lynch on one side, David Byrne from Talking Heads on the other, and Steve Surjik next to him. If you get those three guys in a room, that's something that NASA has been trying to accomplish for generations, and now we'll never be able to do because of the passing of Lynch. But all personalities are super charismatic, artistic, and cerebral. It's super fun. So, but we have one of them, and it's you. And we are talking about
and to be put into that category is humbling. But thank you all the same.
Look.
One of the things that I wanted to talk about was the fact that I missed the David Lynch funeral I was out of town on a job, obviously, and with great regret because the event was apparently spectacular in its bizarre level of sort of bizarro. It was held downtown Los Angeles somewhere, and every person was escorted into this area under a used bowling alley, an old unused bowling alley by 2 7-foot tall white men that were like stick men that didn't say a word, didn't blink, didn't say anything, and took you into the area. At the end of the funeral, there was, and it was presided over by a woman wearing only a veil and a hat, and she had no clothes on, and she talked a lot about a pornographer from the 70s. And then when people decided to leave, they couldn't find their way out because they blocked all the exits, and so you had to find out a new way. There were ways out of it, but it took you to crazy places in Los Angeles that no one had ever been before. So it sounds like quite a trip.
Very Lynchian, even in death. I mean, I wonder if people entered to like the industrial sounds of Dune, like the Dune soundscape, not Dune because he had a rough experience on that, but maybe the Blue Velvet soundscape where it was just like these industrial oil rig type refinery sounds, and you walk in and there's ushers like that look shockingly like Jack Nance and Eraserhead, because there's probably cosplayers that do it. I openly wonder how they may have paid tribute to all his work. And was Bob's Big Boy served? Did Bob's Big Boy cater it?
Yeah, no, apparently not. But so the ceremony was officiated by an unidentified woman who read the day's weather report aloud
Of course.
through tears. Isn't that David Lynch? While only dressed in a black hat, veil, and opera gloves. Isn't that
Yeah.
great? She gave the eulogy for a local porn producer named Dick Laurent before vanishing into the shadows. And crazy. After 15 minutes of perfect silence, attendees who attempted to leave discovered that all the exits had disappeared. Several found other ways out via doors inside buildings, which led to other locations throughout Los Angeles County, including a cheap hotel in San Dimas, a greasy spoon in Alhambra. And at the time of this writing, half of the people who attended Lynch's funeral have yet to reappear in public. Well, you can take that at face value, I guess. But
He loved the urban landscape, didn't he? He felt like he was a character in it. And I can see him in a greasy spoon in Alhambra. And I can actually see him taking meetings in these places too. I know most of his meetings were done at his headquarters, which was Bob's Big Boy. Toto told me they got the job to do the music for Dune at a meeting at Bob's Big Boy. McLaughlin, all these guys say the work was done there, but I can see him walking into like El Tepeyac and Montebello and be like, this place has the world's biggest burrito. Like we're going to enjoy the world's biggest burrito right now. And we're going to put on our headphones and I'm listening to 1982's Devo release, It's a Beautiful World. I just see him like, these things are not far off from the man he was. And he did give us a tremendous amount of art, the way he interpreted his art, his vision of the world. And we're split on the Lynchian mystique. You are a fan of Eraserhead, so much so you even roadshowed your own short with it around theaters in Canada as a double feature, which I think is a brilliant move. But I find his work.
It was a pretentious thing for me to do, but it helped me climb the greasy pole.
I think it's before you get on how pretentious it was, I think it was genius. And I'm a little bit more mystified by his work, but I respect him nonetheless. So I don't want to alienate the Lynch fans in the conversation here, but continue.
The Lynch fans are all, including myself, are all prone to say things like the most important filmmaker of our era, things like that. And I know that those words fall deaf on many ears, but it is definitely his influence on a small group of fans. I would say, like, not everyone loves his work, but on a group of fans, it's been profound. Like he really changed a lot for them. So I'll say that.
Oh, I mean, for some people, it's absolute gospel on a screen. I mean, they do not want to hear any sort of conflict or misinterpretation of what they perceive the work to be. And look, that's one of the beautiful things about our art form is it's there to be interpreted by the individual, his or her way, or their way. It's not one of those things that we are not right or wrong. And that's why I always tell people, whatever the movie is, you should see it for whatever you can get out of it. And Lynch was one of those guys that I felt like was just like channeling a free flow of ideas, whether they made sense in a conventional movie sort of structure type way, that you can discuss. But I feel like he never didn't shut himself off. I felt like he would say, if the idea is in my head, I should go with it because it's in my head. That's the, go ahead. What you say?
And in terms of the ideas that were in his head were largely brought into his head through the act of meditation. And he was I actually I came to meditation through a book that he wrote called The Biggest Fish, maybe, or something about fishing. Anyway, I read it, and it was all about how you go deep down, and the deeper you go, the better chance you have of finding a fish that's large and really edible. You bring it up, and you can feed on that. These are allegories, of course. You can feed on that forever creatively because it's come from a place so deep and profound. And I started meditating, and it's been a life changer for me, and that's
really?
That's not a lie. Yeah. So and then in fact, after he passed away, there was a group meditation that I did participate in. It was worldwide, and it was like one afternoon. I was on the 15th, whatever. At a certain time, everybody was supposed to meditate. He actually argued that it was only through meditation that we could reach world peace. Because like people have been trying to make peace in the world since the beginning of time. Still, tons of violence. There's so much suffering, and sort of conventional means have not supported any kind of cure. Whereas meditation, it still stands to reason that if we all meditate together, we might find the common place where we all meet, which is like this platonic notion of ideas that's all in a big cloud above us, and that if we feel comfortable there, then we can come back to earth and all get along. I'm paraphrasing everything and in a very poor way, but these are the basics.
Well, you're not off base on that, and he was a big advocate for that. In fact, we had a script at Warner Brothers when I was still there in feature development that we were trying to do about 70s police officers, and I remember saying, there's an anger management scene, and we went after Christopher Walken, and I said, number 2 is David Lynch, and he can do like a meditation thing with these angry cops, but Lynch can just probably free flow the whole scene. And it was just he was that known for it that even it's like a joke within the studio, like get him in there and we'll all laugh. We don't know if anyone else will find it funny, but you can go to the type.
He's a good actor.
He was.
Like we saw him in the Spielberg movie, where he played. Who did he play? He played some director that was working at Universal who had the patch on his.
Ford, right? Wasn't he John Ford?
John Ford. Thank you.
Yeah.
And,
They tell me you want to be a picture maker.
Yes, sir, I do.
Why? This business, it'll rip you apart.
Well, Mr. Ford,
So what do you know about art, kid?
I love your movies so much.
No art. See that painting over there?
Yeah. I mean, yes. Yes, I do see it.
Walk over to it. Well, what's in it? Describe it.
Oh, okay. So there are 2 guys, and they're on horseback, and they're looking for something. So maybe they're scouting.
No. Where's the horizon?
The horizon?
Where is it?
It's at the bottom.
That's right. Walk over to this painting. Well?
Right, okay, so there are 5 cowboys,
No. Where's the goddamn horizon?
It's there.
Where?
At the top of the painting.
All right, get over here. Now remember this. When the horizon's at the bottom, it's interesting. When the horizon's at the top, it's interesting. When the horizon's in the middle, it's boring as shit. Now, good luck to you. And get the fuck out of my office.
Young Steven Spielberg came to his office and he lectured him on a painting that was on the wall, how the composition worked in thirds, which is something you learn in art school. And he's like, you see, if it's in the middle, it's bullshit. If it's framed this way, it doesn't make any sense at all. But if you get low down, now it gets interesting. Remember that. Get out of my office. Those kind of
Yeah. There is that famous story Spielberg tells about wandering into John Ford's office, which is probably true to a degree. And Ford basically, for the audience listening to what Steve's saying, is that Ford basically explains that you're not a real director until you let this guy do some of your visual storytelling or the landscape. And to do that, you can't just be at 50. You have to get low or get high. He had a very interesting way of putting it, which actually made sense. The problem is it comes from Ford, who we know is a complete fucking visionary, but also a complete fucking tyrant. So I don't know how maybe he did give it to Spielberg in the way the Fablemans tell it, but it's fun to talk about.
It was tyrannical the way he delivered it, that was for sure. But and there is truth to the to I think the compositional advice that he gave him. Like there is some, like symmetry is boring as shit, and it's in fact evil.
And it is.
You got to stay away from cemetery unless you have a really good reason for
You're
it.
the director, and that's why you're here. You know what's interesting about David Lynch, and I was going to say, if you want to meditate, anyone listening to this and how to get into it, in LA, you can go right to the Thai Temple in North Hollywood, which is one of these mystic hidden landmarks, and go right in on the weekend, and the monks will take you right in, like Kung Fu, the movie. You know, they'll let you meditate. They'll tell you how to do it, and there's even like a street food fair. So,
I didn't know that. I
yeah,
didn't know
props to our Buddhist friends in the Thai Temple. It's one of LA's great hidden mysteries. But Lynch in Blue Velvet, one of your favorite films, he shot very wide.
She wore blue velvet, bluer than velvet was the night, softer than satin was the light from the stars. She wore blue velvet, bluer than velvet were her eyes, warmer than May her tender sighs. Love was ours, love I held tightly, feeling the rapture grow, like the flame burning brightly. But when she left, gone was the glow.
Are you a fan of this?
It
I am,
works.
but
It works. The wide and close is
Mhm.
are the combo for me. You got to get a wide lens, but close up on the character, so you're sucking up a lot of his environment behind his or her environment behind them.
Mhm.
Yeah, I dig it. Yeah, harder to light, takes longer to do, and it's way more interesting.
He did paint a beautiful tapestry with that film, though. If you look at it, we were talking about how it feels like Ozzie and Harriet. You know, you got the roses against the white picket fence. You know, you got firefighters waving. You know, you got what seems like an Eagle Scout kind of neighborhood, and of course, under it, very Lynchian in tone. He goes but deep down to where the bugs are busy working. The
It's true.
but
It's true. He starts with a sort of he kind of lures you into a Leave It to Beaverland
Mhm.
or a Hardy Boys kind of adventure where everything is perfect. There's white picket fences and perfect families and beautiful cars and everyone is working on the front lawn and kids are skipping through the sprinkler, and somebody has starting to have a heart attack on the lawn as their hose hits the ground. The camera goes down to the into the grass, and you eventually catch up to a couple of weird beetles that are eating dung down there or something. God knows what they're doing, and that's kind of they say. Some people say that filmmaking is very straightforward. You say what you're going to say, then you say it, then you say what you said, and that from
Yeah.
the words of John Carpenter. But that's really what David Lynch did at the beginning of Blue Velvet. Is he started by saying, "This is what I'm going to tell you. I'm going to tell you a story about how everything looks beautiful, and then, but yet, in fact, underneath the veneer are all sorts of evil, ugly things." And that's the story I'm about to tell you in Blue Velvet. And then he tells the story, and then at the end, he reiterates. But that's kind of what he's doing there, I think. In a very brief moment, like you get the whole picture.
You know, this film in script form, undoubtedly, when it landed on Dino's desk, he must have recognized this unpacks in nearly perfect fashion in a sense, because you have the Leave It to Beaver neighborhood, but slowly dark elements emerge, partnered with a mysterious element. Like where that is such a good recipe to launch a film where, he finds an ear in the field, some shocking discovery, does something equally shocking, which is doesn't call like a forensic unit or the cops, bags it and takes it down to the station, where, a blue collar police officer says, yes, That is, in fact, an ear. Thank you for this. Have a good day, or something to the equivalent.
And I know that you had trouble with the sort of believing that, what do you call it, with the verisimilitude of that scene.
Mm,
But really, if you put it in perspective, when you were a kid, and if you knew a policeman, a cop that was on your block or somewhere down,
yeah, yeah.
you might just take that right to him the same way. I mean, I probably would. I'd probably pick it up. Hey, look what I found. I found an ear.
It didn't take me out of the movie. I just felt it was unique and a unique way to cut it. It was obviously also a mechanism to not only introduce the story, but introduce these characters and Laura Dern. And all these actors said they didn't read for this. They just met him and he goes, well, yeah, I don't really believe in reading. Lynch didn't, I guess, have any of them go through that part of the process.
Most David Lynch fans won't appreciate this, but in David Lynch's TV series, anyway, in Twin Peaks, one of his series, it was a tremendous, unbelievable show, and it broke so many land records. I can't enumerate, but there were some bad actors in there, and this, I'm always shocked at directors that don't, read the actors and don't hear them do the lines, because you can always be like tricked by someone who comes in. They've got gravitas, or they have a certain kind of sparkle to them, and you go, yeah, that's what I want. But they have trouble. Some of those people have trouble translating that onto the screen, and you have to test them. That's my view. Well, listen to me. I'm now criticizing David Lynch. I'm going to shut up. I'm never going to do any of that again in this interview. So.
No. It's not a criticism. What you're talking about is his angle on, arriving at the right dramatic candidate was different than yours, and you believe in something slightly more thorough to test the skill set before the investment is made. So what Steve did there is he just got the approval of all his Netflix executive buddies and Marvel television buddies who said, that's how you do it, kids. You test them.
No, but you have to test. But I mean, and who else? And Woody Allen also did that. You just meet people and they're, well, hi, how are you? Great, bye. But then he would also reshoot a lot of his stuff. So those two, Anyway, we're going down a road of we're getting into the weeds of casting, which is not the purpose of this particular discussion.
Do you think that part of Lynch's technique was he had a stock company, and some people loved the delivery and performance of some of the stock company members. I looked at some of them as like a little bit more wooden. And do you think he kind of liked to balance it out? Like, David Lee Roth always said, get a shitty opening act. That way we'll sound great. Do you think David Lynch goes, Kyle, you're going to look good because Jack Nance here can't act his way out of a paper bag? I'm not saying Jack Nance couldn't, but, do you think he kind of felt like eyes would gravitate towards?
I don't think it was that. I don't think it was that strategic. I think that sometimes directors and writers think that their material is actor proof. I've heard it. I've heard the word, and I don't think anything is actor proof. I think actors make a reality that is very, very, very difficult to manufacture without their consent, without their soul, them being there. And hopefully, all the people at ACTRA and SAG heard that, because I mean it. There is no, traditionally speaking, in traditional film arts, if you have a good script and a good actor, you don't really have to do very much as a director, except expose the film and point it at the camera at them. Now, clearly, David Lynch is doing something way beyond that. He's not just pointing the camera; he's developing an entire universe. But I still think that a bad actor, reading a shitty line can destroy a scene. It just takes you out of the movie, and that's that. So it didn't happen very often in David Lynch movies. I was so taken. I was so beguiled. I was so romanced by his technique and by all of the great actors, the great writing, that it happened rarely. But it did happen in Twin Peaks. Not in Blue Velvet so much.
Yeah, he does have an outstanding cast in Blue Velvet. Hopper was just coming out of rehab, so he was definitely dedicated to trying to reboot his career, and it was a good vehicle for it because it was loaded with Hopperisms. It doesn't seem too far off base of the way Hopper may have been at times.
Are you lied to me? You sure?
Hey!
is this fuck?
A friend. He's from the neighborhood. We were just talking.
Oh. You're from the neighborhood.
Yeah.
You're a neighbor. Well, what's your name, neighbor?
Jeffrey. He's a good kid, Frank.
Shut the fuck up. Hey, you want to go for a ride?
No thanks.
No thanks. What does that mean?
I don't want to go.
Go where?
For a ride.
A ride. Hell, that's a good idea. Okay, let's go. Let's go. Get your fucking ride.
And my understanding too is he was very good to work with on this. He did 3 movies like right back to back to back. River's Edge being one of them. He bounced to something else in between Blue Velvet and River's Edge. I can't really recall because I'm not totally up to speed on the resume of Dennis Hopper. But you know, it's interesting that it was new ground for Isabella Rossellini. She hadn't done anything this. She hadn't done anything this in this depth at this point, and this was a brutal challenge, I think.
You know, Isabella Rossellini has a twin sister. You know
Really?
that?
No.
This goes back to when, you know, when you're a teenager and you're aspiring to be a filmmaker. I had found a property about a woman in Florida who had a twin sister, and she actually killed her twin sister and took on the role of her twin sister with the twin sister's husband. And this was based on a true story that I had read out of, I don't know, National Enquirer or something. And I became obsessed with this story, and I started to develop it. And I went looking at cast, and Isabella Rossellini was definitely on my list. Listen to me, I was 15 or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, she absolutely can deliver, and she gives a good interview.
She's a great actor.
She was.
Did you interview her? Yeah.
No, I didn't, but I saw her do some. She's very revealing in terms of her. I mean, look, this is one of those. You're handed the script, you want the opportunity, and you understand. Lynch is probably a good director to go down this road with because of how he worked. I mean, can you imagine doing something like this with, say, David Fincher, who says you're going to do 100 takes of Hopper brutalizing you, or somebody who's precise, Kubrick, who says we're going to shoot this scene for 4.5 days, and where Lynch probably goes, oh, that's good enough. You know, we can sound design or edit this to greatness. So, but it's pretty brutal at times. And you know, it's interesting. She had a very concise approach. Like there's that scene when she shows up at the house and she's standing there, you know, towards the end of the movie, and she said,
"Oh, I see. Yeah,
what? No, what was it? What's that?"
I was gonna say she was nude in one of those scenes where she took her clothes. So you're inside your disease, and this is a bold choice. This is a brave moment for any actor at any age, and for her particularly brave. You know, and she looked great, but it's not. She didn't do it to look great. She did it to send out a vibe that was really right for the scene, and it was brilliant. It was brilliant.
Right. She said she based that, or she was inspired by the famous Nikat Vietnam photograph, which is the famous shot of the young lady being burned by napalm who's running down the road and just has that moment when the strike hits of like, I'm about to be incinerated. Tragic photograph. If you've seen it, it's pretty world famous. But she said she took the pose and said, that's the kind of sense of devastation. I mean, that's a very cerebral thing for an actress to do. Like, I'm going to try and take from a photograph and play that sense of emotion into this. And
that little girl Vietnam lived, you know.
Yeah, she did.
Which is a miracle, but
yeah.
So Isabella Rossellini wore blue velvet at David Lynch's funeral, a shawl, and she didn't. There was no mention of it, but I could see it. And I think everyone else saw it, and I think they all recognized what it meant, and it was a sensitive moment for me.
Yeah,
I felt it.
I'm sorry you couldn't be part of the festivities, my friend. They would have loved your presence there.
I just wish I'd gone to the funeral. Funeral sounds like my kind of thing. That's that's how that would have been a great thing to be at and to participate in and to contribute to. I'll leave it at that. I'm not a 7 foot tall white guy, but I could have helped.
Yeah, you could have, my friend. And I'd see you sitting in a like a on a bench next to David Byrne of Talking Heads on one side and Patrick Stewart on the other. I loved it, David. He directed me so well in tune.
So funny, so
We
funny.
shall go not forward in violence. Yeah, Stewart doing his Stewartisms. Hey, there's a connecting tissue here between the other movie we were discussing in relation to John Carpenter, They Live, because at the end of Blue Velvet, her son. Okay, so if you haven't seen a movie that came out in 1986, basically Isabella Rossellini's held hostage by a gangster. Her son is in their custody, although he's in Dean Stockwell's custody. Who Dean Stockwell's a pretty good actor, but it's not really the most foreboding. Doesn't strike me as the most insane captor. But he gets released at the end, and he's wearing a propeller hat. The propeller hat, rumor has it, was invented by Ray Nelson. Ray Nelson did what? He wrote a very engaging short story called 8 in the Morning. 8 in the Morning served as the inspiration for They Live.
Oh, stop this. That's insane. Come on.
It is insane, isn't it? But
That hat was invented by,
yes,
really.
They say he's credited with inventing the propeller hat. So we have a propeller hat in Blue Velvet, invented by the man who wrote the story to our next, which is actually a pretty good story. 8 in the Morning. It's very short. It's like maybe just a couple of pages, but yeah, there's your connection. Fantastic. Do you think Carpenter went to David Lynch's funeral?
They're friends. I mean, there was a comment that he made on X about how he miss him and how they used to hang out and all that kind of thing. But so they're connected, but I don't know if he was at the funeral. There's no mention here of that. Mind you, they just sort of gave the rough overview. Anyway, so then we move to just in closing with in the world of David Lynch. David Lynch inspired me and really brought a lot to my own life. And I recommend that you see David Lynch movies. I would start with Blue Velvet. I would probably go to Twin Peaks, the TV series after that. And if you're still into it, if we haven't lost you, only then would I move further to his other movies, be they Dune or Eraserhead is a tough go for some. For me, it was hand in glove. I just slid right into it. I enjoyed every moment of it. I think it's one of the best movies ever made. It's raw, it's original, it's audacious, and it follows a lot of the original framework for theater of the absurd, which includes the breakdown of the reproductive system. We can no longer reproduce. There's the revenge of things that was one of the themes in absurdist drama. There's the whole sort of existential, alienation. But those are the three big numbers that you're going to get in Eraserhead, plus a soundtrack that'll just shake your insides out. Okay.
Wait. Let's cut to it before we move on. Your recommendations go in this order: Blue Velvet, Twin Peaks, Eraserhead, right?
There you go. Yeah.
Okay.
Then you can go in between, and later you can decide where in that, because that's sort of from the most, Blue Velvet is the most welcoming of all those movies.
Right.
Everyone
so
can come.
Those are all smart choices, and I always encourage everyone to see the movie, regardless of what anyone else's opinion may be. I would actually, what's that?
And that's why I like you, is because you're open-minded about this sort of thing. You like movies. You like movies, and you like people. So,
dude, I have a friend whose favorite movie is Miami Connection, and I am very grateful to the filmmakers of Miami Connection. So my friend has that movie. Now I don't get it, but whatever. But I was going to actually suggest on the Lynch front. I mean, I do respect aspects of all his work. He was very original and inventive in his methodology, but I would actually suggest throw in the list The Elephant Man.
So yeah, you're right. Elephant Man might be more welcoming than even than Twin Peaks. It's really Anyway, it would be a tie. It would be Elephant Man and Twin Peaks. I would say are probably a tie for. At any rate, it's a great movie. It's about a guy who really lived. Based on a true story, and it was produced by none other than Mel Brooks.
Right, Mel Brooks. And it's based on a guy who was shockingly brave and heroic, Merrick, who really was an outstanding personality. More on that later. We should probably look at the film if I can get my courage up, because it's got its heartbreaking moments. But so there's our suggestions in relation to Lynch. May he rest in peace. I want to thank Lynch in closing to this segment for all the weather reports and all the conversations he left us on YouTube, because you can listen to him for hours. He just goes on these very interesting tirades in a relaxed way. And he used to do the weather report like with the mention of a song. He'd be like, it's 52 degrees in Van Nuys, and right now I'm thinking of a unpublished surf band out of Santa Cruz from 1952 called the Dewey Webbers. You can't find anything from them, but I do have an old 8-track recording that was pirated from a show they did at Toe's Tavern in Pasadena in 1969. Here it goes. And you just get this unique, uncanny suggestion where you'd be like, okay. You know, very, very, that's the way to do it. Like give somebody something new, a new possibility, you know.
I think he started doing the weather report during COVID.
Yeah.
He just, and he would just every day he would go on and he would like post his weather report. And as you said, there would always be something adjacent to it that was like a tangent that was more interesting than the original thing, but it was always with, added value.
Here's why my daughter sees a Steve Surjik, David Lynch parallel, though, because David Lynch has videos of him like saying, hey, I'm going to show you guys how to cook quinoa, and it's riveting. Now, I don't give a fuck about quinoa or how to make it, but it's riveting when he does. Now, I could easily see what Sean sees, which is Steve Surjik saying, look, I'm gonna show you guys how to make a Denver omelet, and it would be riveting. It would be absolutely like mind-blowingly engaging. So I get the parallel, and I'm being totally serious.
Hi there, everybody. Voice actor Roger Craig Smith here to talk to you about NMOSD. It can paralyze you, it can blind you, it can even kill you in a matter of minutes, but we are very close to a cure, and with that cure could come a cure for cancer. So please go to the Guthrie Jackson Foundation and donate today. Appreciate it.